My name is Olivia. I am 29 years old. I live in Seattle with my husband, Ethan. We have been married for 6 years. Ethan is 32 years old. He works as a warehouse worker for a shipping company. Every morning, he wakes up before sunrise. He drinks cold coffee, wears his old gray jacket, and leaves quietly for work. Sometimes I wake up and see him standing near the mirror, tying his shoes very slowly because his back hurts from lifting heavy boxes all day. But he never complains, never. Ethan is the kind of man who speaks softly. When I get headaches, he massages my forehead. When I feel stressed from work, he cooks dinner for me. Sometimes he waits outside my office in the rain just to take me home safely. He always says, "You work hard, Olivia. I'm proud of you." And I always smiled. But deep inside, I slowly stopped respecting him. I work at a luxury fashion company downtown. I earn almost twice as much as Ethan. Every day I saw rich people wearing expensive watches, driving beautiful cars, and living perfect lives. My coworkers talked about vacations in Paris, luxury apartments, and husbands who owned successful businesses. And slowly, I started comparing my husband to other men. One evening, my friend Jessica showed me the diamond bracelet her husband bought for her. She smiled proudly and asked me, "What did Ethan buy you for your anniversary?" I laughed softly and said, "Oh, we don't really do expensive gifts." But inside, I felt embarrassed. That night, I looked at Ethan sitting quietly on the couch, watching television in his worn-out clothes. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt disappointed when I looked at my own husband. A few days later, I asked him something that changed everything. Coldly, "Ethan, don't you ever want more in life?" He looked at me and asked softly, "What do you mean?" I crossed my arms and said firmly, "Other men start businesses. Other men become successful. Why are you still working in a warehouse?" The room became completely quiet. Ethan looked down at his hands. Then he said very softly, "I'm trying my best, Olivia." But I didn't stop. I said cruel things. I said, "Your best is not enough anymore." The moment those words left my mouth, I saw pain in his eyes. Real pain. But he stayed quiet. He always stayed quiet. That night, Ethan slept facing the wall. And for the first time in our marriage, the house felt cold. After that night, something changed inside me. Ethan still woke up before sunrise. He still made coffee for both of us. He still kissed my forehead before leaving for work. But now I started noticing things I had ignored for years. I noticed how tired his eyes looked every morning. I noticed the small cuts on his hands from lifting heavy boxes all day. I noticed how slowly he walked after coming home from work because his body was always in pain. And suddenly, I hated myself. How could I compare this man to others? How could I make him feel small when he spent every day sacrificing himself for me? One evening, I came home early from work. The apartment was quiet. Ethan was asleep on the couch. His work boots were still on. His head rested against the arm of the sofa, and his hands looked rough and swollen. I stood there staring at him for a long time. Then I noticed something that broke my heart. His dinner plate was still untouched on the table. He was so exhausted he fell asleep before eating. My chest started hurting. Tears filled my eyes immediately. This man was destroying his body trying to give me a better life, while I kept making him feel like he wasn't enough. I walked closer and slowly covered him with a blanket. Ethan opened his eyes a little and smiled weakly. "Hey," he whispered, "you're home early." Even half asleep, he still smiled at me with love. I sat beside him and quietly asked, "Ethan, are you happy?" For the first time in a long time, he didn't answer immediately. He looked down at the floor. Then he finally whispered, "I don't know anymore, Olivia." Those words hit me harder than anything else. Ethan was always the strong one, the calm one, the patient one. But now I could hear the sadness inside his voice. He looked at me carefully and asked something very quietly. "Am I really that disappointing to you?" I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. My eyes burned with shame. Because the truth was, I had made the man who loved me most feel worthless. Tears rolled down my face while I whispered, broken voice, "No, Ethan, no. I'm the disappointing one." Ethan slowly reached for my hand. His hands felt rough, tired, warm. Then he smiled a little and said, "I just wanted to give you the life you deserved." And in that moment, I realized something painful. The man I kept comparing to others was already giving me everything that truly mattered. After that conversation, I couldn't sleep all night. Ethan's words kept repeating inside my mind. "Am I really that disappointing to you?" Every time I remembered his voice, my chest hurt more. The next morning, I woke up very early. For the first time in years, I watched Ethan carefully before he left for work. He stood quietly in the kitchen, drinking coffee alone. His shoulders looked heavy, his eyes looked exhausted. And suddenly, I realized something painful. My husband looked older than his age. Not because life was hard, but because I had become hard on him. Before leaving, Ethan walked toward me and smiled softly, like always. "Take care of yourself today, Olivia." Even after everything, he still cared about me first. After he left, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at his empty coffee cup. Then, suddenly, I started crying uncontrollably. Real tears, the kind that come from guilt, shame, and regret. I finally understood something. Ethan never failed me. I failed him. That evening, I decided to do something special for him. I cooked his favorite dinner. I cleaned the apartment carefully. I even placed small candles near the table because I wanted him to smile again. But Ethan never came home on time. 8 passed, then 9. I called him once. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. My heart started beating faster and faster. Then, suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered quickly. A man's voice said, "Are you Ethan Carter's wife?" My entire body froze. "Yes." The man said, "Your husband collapsed at work. He's being taken to St. Mary's Hospital right now." I dropped my phone immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. All I could think was, "Please, God, don't take him away from me." I rushed out of the apartment and took a taxi to the hospital. The entire ride felt endless. I kept remembering every cruel thing I said to him. "Your best is not enough. Why can't you be more successful?" And suddenly, none of those things mattered anymore. Not money, not rich people, not luxury. I just wanted my husband to survive. When I reached the hospital, I saw Ethan lying on a bed surrounded by machines. His eyes were closed. His skin looked pale. His lungs looked weak. And suddenly I realized how close I came to losing the only person who truly loved me. I slowly walked toward Ethan's hospital bed. My legs felt weak. My chest felt heavy. I sat beside him and looked at his tired face for a long moment. This man worked himself to exhaustion just because he wanted me to feel proud of him. And instead of loving him properly, I made him feel small. I carefully held his hand. His hands felt cold, rough, exhausted. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry for everything. After a few moments, Ethan opened his eyes slightly. He looked at me and tried to smile. Hey, why are you crying? Even in that condition, he still cared more about my tears than his pain. I lowered my head and whispered, because I was blind. I kept looking at what other people had, and I forgot the value of the person standing beside me every day. Ethan listened quietly. Then he squeezed my hand softly and whispered, You don't have to say sorry anymore. I know life with me isn't easy. Hearing those words destroyed me completely. No, Ethan. Life with you was the safest thing I ever had. Tears rolled down my face while I looked at him. You gave me love, respect, peace, and loyalty. And I treated those things like they meant nothing. Ethan looked at me quietly for a long moment. Then, very softly, he smiled. You're here now. That's enough for me. I couldn't stop crying after hearing that. Because only a truly good man forgives with love, even after being hurt deeply. Ethan stayed in the hospital for several days. And during those days, something inside of me completely changed. I stopped comparing my life to other people. I stopped chasing expensive things that never truly mattered. And for the first time in years, I started appreciating the quiet love my husband gave me every single day. When Ethan finally came home from the hospital, I hugged him tightly at the front door. I didn't care about his old shoes anymore. I didn't care about expensive cars, luxury apartments, or rich husbands. I only cared that the man I loved was alive. Slowly, our home became warm again. We ate dinner together. We laughed again. We spent quiet evenings together on the balcony watching the rain. And every single time Ethan smiled at me, I silently thanked God for giving me another chance before it was too late. Today, when I look at my husband, I no longer see an ordinary warehouse worker. I see the strongest man I have ever known. A man who sacrificed his sleep, his health, and his peace just to make the woman he loved happy. People think love is loud expensive, perfect. But sometimes, real love is quiet. It wakes up before sunrise. It comes home tired. It keeps giving even when unappreciated. And it stays, even after being hurt. Warmly, Ethan is not just my husband anymore. Emotionally, he is the man who taught me what real love truly looks like. And every night before sleeping, I hold his hand a little tighter now, because I almost lost the person who loved me the most. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes, the people who love us quietly are the ones we should never lose.